My name is Ava, and I'm 32 years old. I've been working in corporate offices for nearly a decade, and I've seen my fair share of difficult bosses, but none of them compared to my experience with Rachel, my supervisor at Smith Co. I started working there 5 years ago, fresh out of college, with big dreams and a strong work ethic. At first, the job was everything I thought it would be: challenging, rewarding, and fast-paced. But over time, things started to change. Rachel joined our team about 2 years ago, and from day one, she was different. She had this aura of superiority, this sense of entitlement that rubbed me the wrong way. At first, I brushed it off as her being a bit quirky, but soon it became clear that she was something more. She would micromanage every aspect of our work, breathing down our necks, making sure we were meeting her impossibly high standards. She would belittle us in front of our colleagues, making snide comments about our work. It was like she took pleasure in making us feel small. I tried to brush it off, to focus on my work and ignore her behavior. But it was hard. It was like she had a personal vendetta against me, against all of us, really. I started to dread going to work, feeling anxious every Sunday night, knowing I had to face her the next day. It got to the point where I was questioning my own abilities, wondering if I was good enough. But something inside me refused to give up. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what. And that's when it started. The series of events that would change everything. I walked into the office, exchanging quiet hellos with my colleagues. Rachel was already there, sipping her coffee and scanning the room. She spotted me and beckoned me over to her desk. "Ava, I need to see you about the Thompson report," she said, her voice firm but controlled. I walked over, report in hand, and handed it to her. She scanned it quickly, her eyes narrowing as she pointed out perceived mistakes. "This is unacceptable, Ava," she said. "You need to redo the entire section." I felt a surge of frustration, but I bit back my response. "Yes, Rachel," I said, taking the report back. She leaned back in her chair, eyes still on the report. "And Ava?" she said. "Yes?" I replied. "I expect to see the revised report on my desk by the end of the day." I nodded, feeling a sense of dread wash over me. "I'll get it done," I said. As I walked back to my desk, I couldn't help but wonder why she was being so hard on me. Was it something personal? Was she just having a bad day? But as the day went on, I saw her treating others with the same disdain, the same condescension. It was clear that this was just her way of managing. I started to feel a sense of unease, wondering how much more of this I could take. And then, something happened that would change everything. I trudged back to my desk, the weight of Rachel's expectations settling in. I stared blankly at my computer screen, trying to make sense of the words on the page. But my mind kept drifting back to Rachel's criticism. Was I really not good enough? I thought about all the times I'd received positive feedback from colleagues and supervisors, but Rachel's words cut deep. I started to doubt myself, wondering if I was truly cut out for this job. I began to wonder if I was the problem, not Rachel. Maybe I was just not good enough. Maybe I should just quit and find a new job. But something inside me refused to give up. I thought about all the late nights, early mornings, and weekends I'd put into this job. I thought about the progress I'd made, the successes I'd achieved. I couldn't let Rachel's behavior define me. I took a deep breath and started to work on the report, determined to prove to myself that I was capable. But the more I worked, the more I felt like I was walking on eggshells, never knowing when Rachel would strike again. I started to feel trapped, like I was stuck in a never-ending cycle of criticism and self-doubt, and I didn't know how to escape. The hours ticked by, and I delivered the revised report to Rachel's desk, feeling a sense of trepidation. What would she say this time? Would she find fault again? I waited anxiously for her response, feeling like I was living on edge. I was in a meeting with Rachel and the rest of the team, discussing the upcoming project deadline. Rachel was going over the details, her voice firm and commanding. When she turned to me, her tone changed, becoming condescending and critical. "Ava, I don't understand why you're still struggling with this," she said, her words dripping with disdain. "It's not that complicated." I felt a surge of defensiveness, but I bit back my response. "I'm doing my best, Rachel," I said calmly. But Rachel wasn't having it. She continued to belittle me, her words cutting deep. "You're just not performing up to par, Ava," she said. "Maybe you should focus on your weaknesses instead of pretending you're good at everything." The room fell silent, my colleagues avoiding eye contact. I felt my face heat up with embarrassment and anger. I couldn't believe she was speaking to me like that in front of everyone. When the meeting finally adjourned, I approached Rachel, trying to keep my cool. "Rachel, can I talk to you about the way you're treating me?" I asked, my voice even. But Rachel just waved me off. "You're being too sensitive, Ava," she said. "You need to toughen up if you want to make it in this industry." I left her office, feeling frustrated and humiliated. But this time, something inside me snapped. I knew I couldn't let her behavior go unchecked. I walked back to my desk, my mind racing with thoughts of what had just happened. I couldn't believe Rachel's behavior, the way she'd humiliated me in front of my colleagues. I felt a growing sense of determination, a sense that I couldn't let her get away with this. I started to think about what I could do, about how I could stand up for myself. I began to make a mental list of all the times Rachel had belittled me, all the times she'd made me feel small. I thought about talking to HR, about reporting her behavior. But I was hesitant, unsure if anyone would take me seriously. I didn't want to be seen as a troublemaker or a complainer. But as I sat at my desk, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just sit back and let Rachel continue to treat me this way. I started to feel a sense of resolve, a sense that I would take action. I opened my email and began to type a message to HR, detailing everything that had happened. As I wrote, I felt a sense of empowerment growing inside me. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to stand up for myself. I hit send, and suddenly, everything felt different. I felt like I was taking control, like I was finally doing something about the situation. Now, all I had to do was wait and see what would happen next. I started to meticulously document every interaction with Rachel, every email, every meeting, every conversation. I saved emails, took notes during meetings, and even recorded dates and times of incidents. I wanted to build a solid case against her, to prove that her behavior wasn't just a one-time thing, but a pattern. I spoke to my colleagues, discreetly asking if they'd experienced similar treatment from Rachel. Some were hesitant to talk, fearing repercussions, but others shared their own stories of her behavior. I took detailed notes, making sure to capture every relevant detail. I also reviewed company policies, looking for any evidence that Rachel's behavior was violating HR rules. I highlighted specific sections, making a mental note to mention them in my complaint. As I gathered more evidence, my case against Rachel grew stronger. I felt a sense of determination, knowing that I was taking steps to hold her accountable. I organized my evidence, categorizing it by incident and date. I was methodical and thorough, making sure that I had a clear and compelling narrative. When I felt confident that I had enough evidence, I scheduled a meeting with HR to present my case. I was ready to take action, to stand up for myself and make sure that Rachel's behavior was addressed. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for what was to come. As soon as Rachel found out I had gone to HR, she called me into her office. Her tone was icy, her words laced with venom. "Ava, I hear you've been making some complaints about me," she said, her eyes narrowing. "I want to make one thing clear. You're not going to win any popularity contests around here. You're going to regret going against me." I stood my ground, refusing to back down. "I'm just trying to do my job, Rachel," I said calmly. But Rachel wasn't having it. She started to berate me, her words cutting deep. "You're a troublemaker, Ava," she said. "You're going to regret this." I left her office, feeling shaken but determined. I knew I had made the right decision, but I also knew that Rachel would stop at nothing to discredit me. Over the next few days, Rachel's behavior became even more erratic. She would assign me impossible tasks, then criticize me for not completing them on time. She would CC my superiors on emails, making snide comments about my work. I tried to stay focused, but it was hard. Rachel's retaliation was relentless, and I started to wonder if I had made a mistake. But I refused to give up. I knew I had to see this through no matter what. I continued to document everything, every interaction, every email, every meeting. I was determined to prove that Rachel's behavior was unacceptable and that I wouldn't be intimidated. As the days turned into weeks, Rachel's behavior only got worse. She started to question my competence, my judgment, and my work ethic. But I stood my ground, refusing to let her undermine me. I knew that I had done the right thing, and I was determined to see it through. I reached out to my colleagues, hoping to find some support. Some were willing to share their own stories of Rachel's behavior, while others were more cautious. "I'm not sure I want to get involved," one colleague said. "Rachel can be really vindictive." But I understood their concerns. I assured them that I would protect their anonymity, that I just needed their support. Slowly but surely, more colleagues started to come forward. They shared their own experiences with Rachel, and I documented everything. With each new story, my case against Rachel grew stronger. I also met with HR again, this time with more evidence. "We take these allegations very seriously," the HR representative said. "We'll investigate and take appropriate action." I felt a sense of relief, knowing that someone was finally listening. I continued to gather evidence, to build my case. And with each new development, I felt more confident. I was no longer just a victim. I was a person taking control of my situation. I was determined to see this through, to make sure that Rachel was held accountable. I started to notice a change in myself, a sense of empowerment. I was standing up for myself, and I was not going to back down. I was ready for whatever came next. I was ready to face Rachel, to face the truth. I was ready to take control of my life. I received a call from HR, asking me to meet with them and Rachel's supervisor. My heart was racing as I walked into the meeting room. Rachel was already there, her expression defensive. The HR representative started to speak, her words calm and measured. "We've completed our investigation, and we've found evidence of bullying and harassment. Rachel, you're being put on probation. Any further incidents will result in disciplinary action, up to and including termination." Rachel's face turned red with anger, but I felt a sense of vindication. Finally, someone was holding her accountable. "This behavior will not be tolerated in our company," the supervisor added. Rachel's supervisor turned to her. "Rachel, you need to understand the gravity of your actions. You're expected to change your behavior immediately." Rachel nodded, but I could tell she was seething. The meeting ended, and I left feeling a sense of relief. Something was finally being done. But as I walked back to my desk, I realized that this was just the beginning. Rachel's behavior might change, but the impact of her actions would linger. I was ready to move forward, to rebuild and heal. The question was, what would Rachel do next? Would she change, or would she find new ways to undermine me? I didn't know, but I was prepared to face whatever came next. I walked into Rachel's office, my heart pounding in my chest. The meeting with HR had given me a sense of confidence, and I was ready to confront her. "Rachel, we need to talk," I said, my voice firm. Rachel looked up from her computer, a mixture of anger and curiosity on her face. "What is it, Ava?" she asked, her tone dripping with condescension. I took a deep breath and stood my ground. "I want to make it clear that I will no longer tolerate your behavior," I said. You've bullied me, belittled me, and made my work life unbearable. But I'm not going to take it anymore." Rachel's expression changed, her eyes flashing with anger. "You think you're so much better than me?" she sneered. "You think you can just go to HR and have me fired?" I stood my ground, refusing to back down. "I'm not trying to get you fired, Rachel," I said. "I'm trying to get you to treat me with respect. I'm trying to get you to understand that your behavior has consequences." Rachel's face turned red with rage, and for a moment, I thought she might lash out at me. But then, she seemed to regain control of herself. "You're just a naive little girl," she said. "You don't know how the world works." I smiled, a sense of calm washing over me. "I know that I deserve to be treated with respect," I said, "and I'm not going to let you get away with anything less." The tension between us was palpable, and I could feel the weight of our confrontation hanging in the air. But I refused to back down, and I knew that I had finally stood up for myself. I walked into Rachel's office, my heart pounding in my chest. The meeting with HR had given me a sense of confidence, and I was ready to confront her. "Rachel, we need to talk," I said, my voice firm. Rachel looked up from her computer, a mixture of anger and curiosity on her face. "What is it, Ava?" she asked, her tone dripping with condescension. I took a deep breath and stood my ground. "I want to make it clear that I will no longer tolerate your behavior," I said. "You've bullied me, belittled me, and made my work life unbearable, but I'm not going to take it anymore." Rachel's expression changed, her eyes flashing with anger. "You think you're so much better than me?" she sneered. "You think you can just go to HR and have me fired?" I stood my ground, refusing to back down. "I'm not trying to get you fired, Rachel," I said. "I'm trying to get you to treat me with respect. I'm trying to get you to understand that your behavior has consequences." Rachel's face turned red with rage, and for a moment I thought she might lash out at me. But then she seemed to regain control of herself. "You're just a naive little girl," she said. "You don't know how the world works." I smiled, a sense of calm washing over me. "I know that I deserve to be treated with respect," I said, "and I'm not going to let you get away with anything less." The tension between us was palpable, and I could feel the weight of our confrontation hanging in the air. But I refused to back down, and I knew that I had finally stood up for myself. The days that followed were tense, with Rachel's behavior becoming increasingly erratic. But I stood firm, refusing to back down. And then, the final blow came. Rachel made a critical mistake on a major project, one that cost the company a significant amount of money. The CEO called a meeting, and Rachel's fate was sealed. "Rachel, your behavior has been unacceptable," the CEO said. "Your actions have caused significant harm to this company. I'm afraid I have no choice but to let you go." Rachel's face turned white as she realized her career was over. "This isn't fair," she protested, but it was too late. The decision was made, and she was escorted out of the office. I watched as she left, a sense of closure washing over me. It was finally over. The company would rebuild, and I would move on. The CEO turned to me, a nod of appreciation on his face. "Ava, thank you for standing up for yourself," he said. "Your bravery and integrity are an inspiration to us all." I smiled, feeling a sense of vindication. I had done the right thing, and it had paid off. The aftermath was a whirlwind of activity, with the company scrambling to recover from Rachel's mistakes. But I was ready for the challenge, and I threw myself into my work. I was determined to make a difference, to prove that I was more than just a victim of Rachel's behavior. And as I looked to the future, I knew that I would emerge stronger, more confident, and more determined than ever. The company was in chaos, scrambling to recover from Rachel's mistakes. The CEO called a meeting with the entire staff to address the situation and reassure everyone that steps were being taken to prevent similar incidents in the future. "We apologize for the harm caused by Rachel's behavior," he said. "We will do everything in our power to make sure that our workplace is safe and respectful for everyone." The staff nodded in agreement, and I could see the relief in their faces. The tension in the office had been building for months, and it was finally starting to dissipate. As the days went by, the office began to return to normal. People were smiling again, and the atmosphere was more relaxed. I was approached by several colleagues who thanked me for standing up to Rachel. "You were so brave," one of them said. "We were all too afraid to say anything." I smiled, feeling a sense of appreciation for their support. The company also took steps to improve its policies and procedures to prevent similar situations in the future. They implemented new training programs and increased the frequency of check-ins with employees. I was proud to be a part of a company that was committed to creating a positive work environment. As time passed, I began to focus on my own career development. I took on new challenges and started to build a network of supportive colleagues. I was determined to move forward and to make the most of the opportunities that lay ahead. The experience with Rachel had been difficult, but it had also taught me a lot. I had learned the importance of standing up for myself and of seeking support when I needed it. And I had learned that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope for a better future. I sat at my desk, reflecting on the past few months. The experience with Rachel had been a roller coaster ride, but it had taught me a lot. I thought about the lessons I had learned, about standing up for myself and seeking support when needed. I realized that I had grown as a person, that I was more confident and self-assured. I thought about the people who had supported me, my colleagues in the HR department. They had been instrumental in helping me navigate the situation. I was grateful for their help and support. As I looked back, I knew that I had made the right decision. I had stood up for myself, and it had paid off. Rachel was gone, and the office was a more positive place. I was proud of myself for taking a stand, for refusing to back down. I knew that I would carry the lessons I had learned with me, that I would be more confident and assertive in the future. I was ready to move forward, to take on new challenges and opportunities. The experience had been difficult, but it had been a valuable learning experience. I was a stronger person because of it. I looked back on the experience with Rachel, and I knew it had changed me. I was more confident, more assertive, and more determined to stand up for myself. The lessons I had learned would stay with me forever, and I knew I would carry them with me in my personal and professional life. My career was flourishing, and I was taking on new challenges. I had earned the respect of my colleagues, and I was known for my bravery and integrity. I was proud of myself, and I knew I had made the right decision. I thought about the future and all the possibilities that lay ahead. I was excited to see what would happen next, and I knew I was ready for whatever came my way. The experience with Rachel had been a turning point in my life, and I was grateful for the growth and lessons it had brought me. I was moving forward, stronger and more confident than ever. I was ready for the next chapter of my life, and I knew I would face it head-on. Share your experience with us in the comment section below. This is the end of my story. If you like this kind of content, kindly like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Thank you.